SQL JSON in Oracle 12c. What it does is provide SQL access to JSON data stored in its JSON normal format, translating all of that data into relational data, which is columns and records. First topic we look at in these videos is dot notation. This is used to navigate through the JSON elements, starting from the uppermost, working to the lowest one desired, using dot notation. If you're familiar with the Oracle relational term row by agonizing row, dot notation is sometimes referred to as key by agonizing key. Next topic we talk about is the types of JSON supported. It supports strict JSON, strict in formatting, in that everything must have double quotes and colons in between. It also allows not strict JSON to be stored. You can also specify whether your JSON has to have unique keys or not. We'll also discuss a very important function, which is a constraint which validates if JSON data is actually valid JSON. Next topic is JSON exists, which is basically very well described. It checks if a certain key and/or value exists in JSON data, returning true if it's found and false if it isn't found. Next up is JSON value, which is a great way to begin working with JSON and SQL because it simply extracts a scalar value out of JSON data. Working up in the complexity scale is the JSON query function. This one extracts JSON data out of JSON data. It extracts JSON as arrays in square brackets and/or squiggly brackets. And if it extracts a scalar value, you actually have to tell it to wrap the value in square brackets. Last but not least, the big function is JSON table. This one literally does all the work to translate JSON data in keys and elements into rows and columns displayed in a table. It makes use of all the previous JSON functions, including JSON exist, JSON value, and JSON query, to make everything appear as a table, satisfying Oracle developers worldwide. I'm going to briefly talk about JSON indexes as well. In the relational world, the index is on a column in a table. In the JSON world, the index is on a series of values for a particular key embedded within the JSON data. Next up is the errors clause. The errors clause refers to what Oracle will do when it encounters bad JSON, such as a missing key or a duplicate key, or a value that isn't there that is expected to be there. We can talk about several options available and what would be best for you. Along the way, we're going to do comparisons between JSON SQL and relational SQL, and also some comparisons between JSON data and relational data. That's because there's many audiences for these videos. They're written for Oracle technologists that are new to JSON, which means they simply need to know how to get access to JSON data, but make it look like relational data that they are familiar with. Also written for JSON technologists who have now been forced to work in Oracle in a relational database using SQL against their JSON data. Also written for anybody looking for a quick refresher on some SQL or JSON concepts. Overall, it's for anybody looking to learn something new. Videos are written short and sweet. Most of them are under 7 minutes or less. The examples I kept as simple as could be so they wouldn't get in the way of demonstrating the concepts.